This time, he communicated directly with Li Tian. Why did you guys run away so quickly? Azure Dragon is seriously injured and needs medical attention. Hurry back and pick him up, otherwise he could die at any moment. Jang Yi wasn't joking. Forcing himself to reach a higher realm was a serious injury that Azure Dragon couldn't bear. Although Jang Yi had injected him with medicine to keep him alive, if he didn't receive treatment as soon as possible, he would surely die. Now, Li Tian was really in big trouble. Azure Dragon was of great strategic value to the East Sea region. He was second only to Black Tortoise in strength. Now that the mission had failed and the East Sea region had suffered heavy losses, if anything else happened to Azure Dragon, Li Tian might as well drink a poison pill and end his life when he returned. He wouldn't even need to stand trial in a military court. You bastard, Jang Yi. You're really ruthless. Using Azure Dragon to threaten me. Mark my words, the East Sea region will not let this matter end so easily. You will have to give us an explanation. Li Tian thought for a moment with a gloomy look on his face, but still felt that he couldn't just sit back and do nothing about Azure Dragon. He didn't trust Jang Yi and couldn't possibly entrust Azure Dragon's life to him. Black Tortoise, have him send Azure Dragon over here. Li Tian said to Black Tortoise. At this moment, Black Tortoise was diving more than 1,000 meters below the surface of the water. After hearing Li Tian's words, he looked at him expressionlessly. Are you sure? Li Tian snorted coldly, of course. Azure Dragon's life is very valuable to the East Sea region. He can't die yet. Besides, I am the commander-in-chief of this operation. How can Jang Yi dare to do anything to me? What's more, everyone from the Jiangnan region is in our hands. A cold smile appeared on Li Tian's face. He felt that he had Jang Yi by the short hairs and that he couldn't turn the tables on him. Black Tortoise nodded, okay. He began to surface and sent Jang Yi his coordinates. It didn't take long for Jang Yi to arrive at Black Tortoise's location. Black Tortoise opened his mouth wide, and Jang Yi let flower come out from behind Spirit Guardian's shadow. It was carrying the seriously injured Azure Dragon on its back. Jang Yi walked into Black Tortoise's mouth with a relaxed smile on his face. In this state, Black Tortoise couldn't do anything to him, so Jang Yi wasn't worried that Black Tortoise would suddenly attack him. Li Tian walked over with a team of guards. As soon as he saw Jang Yi, Li Tian couldn't help but swallow hard. Epsilon. Currently the highest level of mutant in the world, with the terrifying combat power to destroy a city single-handedly. It would be a lie to say that Li Tian wasn't feeling nervous inside. But when he thought about how they were inside Black Tortoise's body and that he had control over everyone in the Jiangnan region, he felt a little more confident. Chaos. You set up quite a scheme this time. You almost got us all killed. When we get back, I'll demand that the Jiangnan region give us an explanation. Before he could finish, a slap suddenly appeared out of thin air and hit him hard across the face. Smack! Li Tian was caught off guard and stumbled backwards. However, he was also a mutant. Although he was only a beta-level enhancement mutant, his physical abilities were still stronger than those of ordinary people. Seeing that Jang Yi dared to slap him in front of so many people, Li Tian was instantly enraged. Jang Yi! How dare you hit me? Huh? Jang Yi didn't expect this geezer to be so tough, so he simply took out his gun. Everyone's expressions changed instantly. Jang Yi was getting serious. Black Tortoise's spirit body also flew over. Chaos, don't be impulsive. Jang Yi glanced at him coldly. What, you want to fight me? Black Tortoise was speechless. He took a deep look at Jang Yi, then silently left. This was inside his body, and he was severely injured at the moment. How could he fight Jang Yi? Smart people don't need to talk nonsense. He knew what choice to make. Li Tian widened his eyes and shouted fiercely, I am the combat commander of the East Sea region. Jang Yi raised his hand and shot him in the left knee. Li Tian fell to his knees with a thud. He struggled to stand up with his other leg, but Jang Yi aimed at his right knee and fired another shot. Ah! Li Tian collapsed on the ground in pain, wailing pitifully. Although he was a mutant, he had never undergone training or combat in his daily life. He was only supported by drugs. Jang Yi aimed his gun at his head and walked towards him step by step. Li Tian, Commander-in-Chief, you are incompetent and incapable. Your reckless command on the battlefield led to the tragic deaths of many innocent members of the task force. Furthermore, you oppressed the mutants in the Allied region and targeted the outstanding investigation team captain, Chaos. You even refused to save him when he was in danger and deliberately put Chaos in a life-threatening situation. Tell me, do you deserve to die? Li Tianyang's eyes turned red. He struggled to lift his head and stared intently at Jang Yi. Nonsense. Just because you say so, it's true? Jang Yi looked at him with a domineering expression. Yes, I said so it's true. Li Tianyang was trembling with rage. He knew that nothing he said would matter now. Desperate, he decided to strike first and reached for the gun at his waist. Jang Yi didn't stop him. When Li Tianyang aimed the gun at him, Jang Yi pulled the trigger first. The bullet pierced Li Tianyang's head, leaving a beautiful red mole on his forehead. The air was unusually quiet. The officers of the East Sea region were pale. They never expected that Jang Yi would actually kill someone when he said he would. Jang Yi put away his gun and spread his hands innocently to the people around him. Everyone saw it clearly. I didn't want to kill him. He attacked me first. I was completely acting in self-defense. How could anyone around him dare to say a word? If he dared to kill Li Tianyang, then he definitely wouldn't mind killing one more ignorant person. Black Tortoise's spirit body floated over to Jang Yi and said coldly, you played a big game this time. Think carefully about how you're going to explain this to the two major districts. Jang Yi tilted his head and said meaningfully to Black Tortoise, are you also this careful and cautious after becoming an Epsilon mutant? Black Tortoise thought about it and suddenly laughed. Don't be ridiculous. Since then, everything I do is justified and correct. Ha! Ha! The two suddenly burst into laughter. He was right, nowadays, whatever Jang Yi did was correct. He was already Epsilon, and the Huashu Kingdom needed his strength. Zhu Jing of the Jiangnan region would not blame him for deliberately concealing the truth. On the contrary, he would try even harder to curry favor with him. As for the East Sea region, their anger could be appeased as long as the Jiangnan region paid a sufficient price. This was because the Jiangnan region now had its own Epsilon. At this moment, no one cared about the corpse lying on the ground. The combat minister was a position, not a person. Li Tianyang was dead, but Ma Tianyang and Yo Tianyang would take over his duties. Black Tortoise dove underwater, and Jang Yi ordered his men to bring everyone from the Jiangnan region over. He couldn't follow Black Tortoise back to the East Sea region. After all, he had played the East Sea region hard enough this time. If he really went back, he would inevitably get into trouble again. Jang Yi was too lazy to argue with them. He had made up his mind, after returning to the Jiangnan region, he would leave this mess for Zhu Jing to deal with. He had been thinking about how to explain to Zhu Jing that he had secretly taken the source of God and sent the people of the Jiangnan region to their deaths. But that was fine now. Zhu Jing had sent Spirit Guardian to spy on him, which was the perfect excuse. In any case, he didn't have to worry about Zhu Jing turning against him now. On the contrary, Zhu Jing would have to be even more careful to keep him happy. Such were the rules of survival in the end times. As long as you are strong enough, you will always be right. The people of the Jiangnan region were gathered together, many of them wounded, including Zhu Jing, who had also fainted. But the others still learned that Jang Yi had become a mutant of Epsilon. Their eyes were filled with envy and awe. But then they remembered how Jang Yi had tricked them, and they felt resentful. Jang Yi didn't care about that. When Black Tortoise arrived at the border of the Huashu Kingdom, Jang Yi told him to surface, then chose to take a boat back with his people. Black Tortoise couldn't turn against Jang Yi at this point, so he obediently sent Jang Yi and the others away. Jang Yi opened the dimensional gate, took out a giant icebreaker, and then ordered everyone to board the ship. Deng Shintong and the others boarded the ship one after another, then took all the wounded away. Well, goodbye, everyone. Zhang Yi smiled and bid farewell to Black Tortoise and the others. Among the 4 spirits, only Black Tortoise was in good condition at this time. Both Azure Dragon and Vermilion Bird were seriously injured and unable to come to see them off. But if the 2 of them were really here, they would probably be gnashing their teeth at Zhang Yi. Black Tortoise shrugged indifferently. Actually, it's best if we don't meet again. I don't think it would be a good thing if 2 epsilons met. Zhang Yi nodded. He thought of the black armored monster in the huge abyss on Star Island, and his heart was still trembling. You're right. Zhang Yi bid farewell to Black Tortoise, and the giant tortoise swam towards the East Sea region. Zhang Yi commanded the soldiers on the ship to steer the icebreaker towards Tianhai City. They would first go to Tianhai City, then take the Blizzard City special train back to Blizzard City. At this moment, everyone's attitude towards Zhang Yi became even more respectful. When they came, they were still angry at Zhang Yi's carelessness. But now, the vast majority of them had genuine respect for Zhang Yi. Perhaps some people felt that Zhang Yi had used this trick to harm too many people in the 2 regions, including their comrades in arms. However, most people only recognized Zhang Yi's strength. This was because the strong were always right, and they didn't need to explain themselves to the weak. Most of the people who had survived the apocalypse understood this truth. However, Deng Shintong and Linghu Feishue were not entirely comfortable with Zhang Yi's actions. Zhang Yi had the wounded taken care of, then stood alone on the deck, leaning against the railing and looking out at the blue icy sea. Deng Shintong and Linghu Feishue walked over. Deng Shintong looked helpless, while Linghu Feishue's eyebrows were furrowed in obvious dissatisfaction. Hey, old Zhang! Deng Shintong raised his hand and greeted Zhang Yi. I didn't expect you to be the ultimate winner this time. It's really surprising. But since you've already become an epsilon, why didn't you tell us? That would have reduced our casualties. Zhang Yi said indifferently, if I had told you, would you still be able to put on such a good show? Deng Shintong stroked his forehead and shook his head helplessly. Zhang Yi had saved his life, so he couldn't say anything. Linghu Feishue wasn't so easy to talk to. She walked up to Zhang Yi, raised her head and looked straight into Zhang Yi's eyes, her ice blue eyes sharp and mixed with intense anger. We are comrades in arms. We are not enemies. At least when we are on a mission together, I hope you can consider our lives. Zhang Yi didn't say anything, just looked out at the vast sea. The sea breeze was salty and cold, blowing against his combat uniform and making it cling to his skin. Actually, none of that matters. He suddenly said this cryptic sentence, then left without another word to Linghu Feishue and Deng Shintong. He couldn't be bothered to explain anything. Everyone could blame him for this, and Zhang Yi didn't think there was anything wrong with that. They were thinking about the issue from their own perspective. But Zhang Yi didn't need to explain himself to them because he was thinking about the issue from his own perspective. So there was no right or wrong in this conflict, let alone a correct answer. They just had different positions. Then it was up to each person to rely on their own abilities. Zhang Yi didn't care what others thought about this issue. When he decided to obtain the source of God on his own and set a trap to lure the East Sea region and the Columbia fleet into it, he knew that this would be the result. In any case, he had already gotten everything he wanted. He found Spirit Guardian and asked her to hand Flower and Lele over to him. Spirit Guardian immediately released Flower and Lele from shadow space. The captured Totoro was now completely anesthetized, sticking out his tongue and lying motionless on Lele's back, looking very funny. Zhang Yi didn't say much, calling Flower and Lele and preparing to leave. Spirit Guardian looked at Zhang Yi from behind and suddenly shouted, Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi turned back and said, how many times have I told you to use our code names when we're working? Zhang. Zhang Yi was silent. Spirit Guardian hesitated for a moment, then lowered her head and said, we're not working right now. Oh, you're right, then what did you want to talk to me about? Zhang Yi asked calmly as he looked at her. Spirit Guardian quietly clenched her small fist, then mustered up her courage and said to Zhang Yi, Can I follow you? Zhang Yi's eyes revealed a look of surprise. You want to follow me? Are you kidding? Aren't you Zhu Jing's subordinate? Spirit Guardian explained, I'm just an experiment. My only purpose is to help Zhu become perfect. My abilities depend on others to survive, so you are my best choice. Zhang Yi's face lit up with understanding. If Zhu was a copy of Yuan Kongyue, then her abilities were likely the same as Yuan Kongyue's. The reason Spirit Guardian was able to quickly become a captain-level mutant was also because she used Ice Soul. During her time with Zhang Yi, she slowly learned the truth about Ice Soul. She also understood that sooner or later, she would be sacrificed for Zhu Yu's perfection. So she wanted to find a way out for herself. Zhang Yi suddenly smiled. But why should I accept you? Your strength is nothing to me. I have the same abilities as you, and I'm even better than you. Most importantly, I can't be sure that you're loyal enough. That's the most important thing to me. Spirit Guardian opened her mouth, but in the end, she only mentioned her one advantage. My shadow can contain living things. Zhang Yi thought about it for a moment, then smiled. He didn't give Spirit Guardian any answer, just turned and walked away. The conditions Spirit Guardian had proposed were not enough for him to accept this woman. Spirit Guardian looked at Zhang Yi walking away with a sense of loss. After a while, one after another, mutants dressed in black combat uniforms emerged from the shadows behind her. They were all members of the Night Raven squad, but unlike Spirit Guardian, they were not recipients of Yuan Kongyue cells. Instead, they were recipients of Spirit Guardian cells. Therefore, all of them possessed the ability of shadows. However, as transplant recipients, they could not possess all of the abilities' characteristics, so they could only be considered inferior versions of Spirit Guardian. However, as shadows, it was enough for them to attach themselves to each captain-level mutant and monitor their movements. Captain, we should report the situation here to the commander. One of the Night Ravens said coldly. Spirit Guardian raised her head and regained her usual indifferent expression. She placed her right fist on her chest and said, Now, gather all the information. Jiangnan Region, Blizzard City. After reading the information sent by the Night Raven squad, Zhu Jing sat in his chair and fell into a long silence. Next to him, a little girl only a meter tall stood behind the chair, holding a pink rabbit doll in her arms, looking up at him with an innocent expression. Zhu Jing slowly lowered his head, glanced at the cute little girl, and suddenly let out a long sigh. He stroked Zhu Yu's smooth hair, slowly got up, and walked to the windowsill. Today, it was still snowing heavily in Blizzard City, and the roofs of every building were covered with snow. The cold wind howled, and it seemed as if the snow would never stop, freezing the entire land. My whole life has been like walking on thin ice. Tell me, will I be able to reach the other side? Zhu Yu didn't know what Zhu Jing meant by this, so she tilted her head curiously and blinked her cute big eyes. Lan Xinchen looked at Zhu Jing from the side, opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. The information they had received today was simply too unbelievable. Coupled with the recent events, Zhu Zheng's calculations had been wrong one after another, and he looked several years older. I calculated everything, but I still miscalculated Zhang Yi. He is more powerful than I thought, which should be a good thing. But when he returns, he will definitely hold me accountable. I'd better prepare myself for how to deal with him. Zhu Jing raised his right hand, thought for a moment, and said to Lan Xinchen, prepare all the supplies in the warehouse. Leave what we need and prepare the rest for Zhang Yi. He is now an epsilon and has many subordinates. He will need more and more supplies in the future, and he will still need these things. Also, give him unlimited supplies of weapons and equipment. Although he may not necessarily need them, it is a sign of our sincerity. Oh, doesn't his friend surnamed Su like to spend money in Blizzard City? Pay attention to which service technician he likes and reserve that one for him in the future. Zhu Jing made many arrangements, all of which were his sincere gifts to Zhang Yi. As for Zhang Yi's plot against the Jiangnan region and his secret theft of the Source of God, Zhu Jing had no intention of discussing it with Zhang Yi in detail. How could he talk about it? What was there to talk about? Right now, he could only cling to Zhang Yi's legs and let him stay in the Jiangnan region to help him. Otherwise, if Zhang Yi was unhappy, he would leave without a second thought. In the 6 major regions of the Huashu Kingdom, who wouldn't want an epsilon? Lan Xinchen carefully wrote down Zhu Jing's instructions. Later, he began to waver a little, because Zhu Jing had given Zhang Yi too much. Commander Zhu. Isn't that a little too much? Zhang Yi is a mutant from the Jiangnan region and your subordinate. But if you do this, won't it make us look? Lan Xinchen swallowed the rest of his words. Zhu Jing glanced back at him and finished his sentence for him. Make us look like we're trying to curry favor with Zhang Yi, right? Lan Xinchen didn't say anything. Zhu Jing sighed lightly. It's been a year. It's been a year since the end of the world. Our Jiangnan region is located in the most prosperous area of the Huashu Kingdom, but we've been too comfortable for too long, and in terms of combat effectiveness, we're ranked among the lowest in the country. But haven't we encountered many things in the past year? Things are not what they used to be. High-level mutants will become increasingly important. So far, we don't have a single epsilon-level mutant. That's why we must keep Zhang Yi here. Zhu Jing looked into the distance. The tall reinforced concrete walls of Blizzard City looked so solid that even large-caliber cannons would have difficulty destroying them. However, they couldn't even stop a Delta-level space ability mutant. Zhang Yi's ship arrived in Tianhai City and docked at Xiaoyu Harbor. This trip was not long, and Tianhai City was still the same as before. Qin Jingwan brought people to welcome Zhang Yi and the others. Zhang Yi said to Qin Jingwan, arrange a car to take them to the Xiaomayashan subway station. Qin Jingwan was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and had someone arrange for a car to take them away. He had thought that these were all important figures from the Jiangnan region, and that Zhang Yi would want to entertain them. He didn't expect that they were just passing through. Deng Shintong walked over and asked Zhang Yi, aren't you coming back with us? Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi smiled contemptuously. If I go back now, I'm afraid many people won't be able to sleep. Forget it, you guys go back and explain the situation here to the higher-ups. I'll go over there myself in a while. Even if Zhu Jing didn't call him, Zhang Yi would have gone anyway. Zhang Yi still had to have a serious talk with old Zhu about sending the spirit guardians to secretly monitor him. Deng Shintong nodded thoughtfully, patted Zhang Yi on the shoulder, and looked at him sincerely, saying, Zhang Yi, you've saved me more than once. No matter what you decide to do, I'll always be on your side. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled playfully, can you speak for the Deng family? Deng Shintong was taken aback for a moment, then laughed and said, I guess so. Zhang Yi's mind raced. Good for you, Deng Shen and Jeet. It seems that you still haven't given up on the struggle for power in Blizzard City. He probably thought that Zhang Yi might turn against Zhu Jing, so he hurried over to win Zhang Yi over to make it easier for the Deng family to rise to power in the future. Others didn't know Epsilon's strength, but he knew it very well. Basically, in Blizzard City today, whoever could get Zhang Yi's support could become the #1 power. Ah, I'll remember that. Zhang Yi replied indifferently. Deng Shintong's bright eyes flashed with a strange light. He thought to himself, Zhang Yi is not the same as he used to be. Our Deng family must get closer to him and not make enemies with him. Qin Jingwan arranged for someone to send everyone to the subway station. Zhang Yi didn't bother to follow. He just wanted to go home and rest. After a major battle, what could be better than returning home to a warm and comfortable house, drinking a cup of hot coffee brewed by Yang Xia herself, and lying down on Zhou Keir's lap pillow? Just as he was about to leave, Zhang Yi spotted several familiar faces among the guards at Xiaoyu base. One was a man with a crew cut, a fairly neat beard, a determined expression, and dark skin. There were also 2 other men with the same bronze skin color as him. They were the fishermen he had brought back from Rock Flow Island, Luhai, Rong Lei, and Yu Gang. After that group was brought back, Zhang Yi had them separated and placed in 3 different bases to prevent them from forming a clique. Luhai and the other 2 were placed here with Qin Jingwan. He didn't expect them to rise so quickly and become members of the guard. But on second thought, it made sense. Tianhai City was sparsely populated, and after several battles, less than 20,000 people remained alive. It was one of the least populated cities in the entire Jiangnan region. The major bases were also lacking young and strong men. Lu Dehai and the other two were strong and brave, and it was indeed easy for them to rise to prominence. Jang Yi smiled slightly and waved them over. "Come here." Lu Dehai and the other two had been looking at Jang Yi eagerly. At this moment, they knew very well that Jang Yi was the true king of Tianhai city, and even the leader of their Xiaoyu base was only a subordinate of Jang Yi. As soon as the three saw Jang Yi waving at them, they immediately ran over excitedly. "Mr. Zhang." Lu Dehai nodded respectfully. In his heart, he was still full of awe and gratitude towards Jang Yi. After all, it was Jang Yi who brought them back from the desolate rock flow island and saved their lives. Jang Yi took out a pack of cigarettes from the dimensional space. They were his favorite brand, 12 Beauties of Jinling. He rarely smoked, but after the apocalypse, he would occasionally have a cigarette. He divided the cigarettes among the three of them, lit one for himself, and then threw the rest of the pack to Lu Dehai. This gesture made Lu Dehai and the other two's eyes light up. Cigarettes were an extremely scarce resource after the apocalypse. After all, apart from the regional headquarters, which was still producing tobacco for the upper echelons, cigarettes were out of stock in the outside world, and the more they smoked, the less they had. "How are things at Xiaoyu base lately? Are you getting used to it?" Jang Yi asked casually while smoking. Lu Dehai hurriedly replied, "It's pretty good. Our life here is much better than when we were on Rockflow Island." Jang Yi nodded. "Since you think it's good, then work hard. I don't like to meddle in the affairs of the three major bases. If you want to live a certain kind of life, you have to fight for it yourselves." After saying that, Jang Yi didn't wait for Lu Dehai to reply and walked away on his own. He only chatted with them on a whim. After all, he had gone through great pains to bring them back, so he naturally had some expectations. Jang Yi opened the dimensional gate and was about to leave. Just at that moment, Lu Dehai and his two brothers looked at each other, hesitated for a moment, and suddenly shouted, "Mr. Zhang! Mr. Zhang! Please wait! Wait a minute!" Lu Dehai was so excited that he could hardly speak, his face red with embarrassment. Jang Yi turned back curiously. What's the matter?" Lu Dehai scratched his head, looked around carefully, then walked up to Jang Yi and said excitedly, "Mr. Zhang, I've also awakened supernatural powers." Jang Yi raised his eyebrows. "You've awakened too? How did you awaken?" Lu Dehai said, "It was just one day while I was working, and I suddenly awakened." Jang Yi was a little surprised. In his experience, awakening supernatural powers was a very difficult thing. For example, he and Yang Xinxin had both gone through life and death trials before awakening. There were a few exceptions, but they had awakened with the help of rare items. For example, Yang Xia and Zhou Qir. But Lu Dehai actually said that he suddenly awakened. "Tell me more." Jang Yi hugged his arms and looked at Lu Dehai with some curiosity. Lu Dehai recounted the process of his awakening. That day, he was wearing winter clothes and unloading boxes of fish from a fishing boat at the port. Then, suddenly, he looked up and the world around him turned into a white haze. His blood began to feel strange, as if it had suddenly turned into lava, and then, after a moment, into an icy river. This sensation of extreme heat and cold continued to surge through his body. He fainted on the spot. When he came to, he discovered that his body had undergone a remarkable transformation. Jang Yi listened carefully, not missing a single word. This was the first time he had heard about Lu Dehai's mutation process, which was completely different from that of the others. This might be a new type of mutation. "Let me see your current abilities," Jang Yi said to Lu Dehai. Lu Dehai rolled up his sleeves and spread his palms. With a slight effort, his skin instantly turned a dark green color like seaweed, and a layer of fine scales grew on his fingernails. Even between his fingers, something like frog webbing appeared. Clang! A pair of bone blades shot out from his forearms, cold and menacing. Jang Yi muttered, "Beast type, ocean species. It really suits your abilities." He looked at Lu Dehai and suddenly laughed. "Does anyone else know about this?" Luhai swallowed hard. At the time, this incident caught the attention of the higher-ups, and Big Brother Chen also knows about it. Jang Yi thought for a moment, pointed at him and said, "The three of you follow me back." Luhai was overjoyed. Being able to get closer to Jang Yi would give them a better chance of developing in Tianhai City in the future. "Yes, Mr. Zhang. But we have to report to Chen first." Jang Yi snorted and casually called over a guard soldier, "Tell Chen Jingwan that I'm taking these three with me." The guard soldier hurriedly nodded, "Yes, Mr. Zhang." Jang Yi opened the dimensional gate right in front of them, then walked in with Flower and Lele. Luhai and his two brothers looked at each other and quickly followed. The moment they stepped through the dimensional gate, they appeared thousands of meters away. Although it wasn't the first time they had seen this magical technique, they were still greatly surprised. Before long, Jang Yi brought them to their long-lost refuge. Jang Yi's return was naturally greeted by the entire family. Luhai and the other two hurried over and greeted them with bows and smiles. Jang Yi smiled slightly and said, "You guys go to the room next door and rest for a while. Sia, go pour them some hot water and get some fruit and pastries for them to eat." Yang Xia nodded with a smile, then reached out elegantly and invited them to sit in the room next door. Luhai and the other two nodded repeatedly, then walked into the small room used to entertain guests. After entering the room, the three sat down on the sofa. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, they could see the beautiful and cold snowy world outside. The three were burning up, so they hurriedly took off their winter coats. "This is the life!" Luhai couldn't help but exclaim. The three of them sat carefully on the sofa, only daring to sit on one side, afraid of dirtying anything in Jang Yi's home. Rong Lei and Yu Gang also couldn't help but say, "If we could follow Mr. Zhang, that would be so great." Luhai's expression became serious. "Who is Mr. Zhang? He's like a god. It's not that easy to follow him around." To them, Jang Yi was indeed like a god. His power was beyond their imagination. "You're right." Rong Lei nodded. He also felt that being able to enter Jang Yi's home was already a huge blessing. As for following Jang Yi, he didn't even dare to think about it. Yu Gang said, "But Lu, you're also a mutant now. There might be a chance for you to work for Mr. Zhang." Luhai took a deep breath, shook his head and said, "I know my own situation. The gap between Mr. Zhang and me is too big." He rubbed his rough hands and said in a deep voice, "I only hope that I can use my supernatural powers to make Mr. Zhang take a second look at me. If he says just one word, it will make our lives in Tianhai City so much better." No sooner had he finished speaking than the sound of a door opening could be heard outside. Yang Xia brought in hot tea, a fruit platter, and pastries, and said to the three of them with a smile, "Wait here for a moment, Jang Yi will be here to see you shortly." The three of them stared at the hot tea and food she had placed on the table, their eyes wide. Even if they wanted to act reserved, they couldn't take their eyes off it. After all, for them, it was already difficult enough to eat protein bars or fish and meat to their fill on a normal day. Where would they ever find pastries and fruit to eat? Yang Xia smiled slightly and said, "Don't be so polite, just help yourselves. If there's not enough, I'll go get more." She knew what the three people in front of her were thinking. However, these things were nothing to the shelter. Not to mention that Jang Yi himself had stored a huge amount of food in his dimensional space. Even after the apocalypse, Jang Yi hadn't forgotten to send Fatty Sue, Uncle Yu, and the others to loot large supermarkets. Those supermarkets and shopping malls buried by snow were full of supplies, which they had all taken back. Nowadays, the shelter had no shortage of regular supplies. Fruits and other items were grown in the home vegetable garden. Luhai and the other two stammered and thanked Yang Xia repeatedly. When Yang Xia left the room and closed the door, the three of them could no longer control themselves and rushed over to stuff the food into their mouths. In the living room, Jang Yi brought Flower and Lele back home, and everyone was very happy. However, all the women's attention was attracted by the anesthetized Totoro. There was no way around it, that guy was just too cute, especially when he couldn't move. He looked just like one of those oversized stuffed toys sold in supermarkets. "Brother Jang Yi, what is this? Did you bring it back as a gift for us? Yang Xinxin hugged Totoro, her eyes sparkling. Totoro was clearly not used to these overly enthusiastic women and kept making threatening growling sounds. Ugh! Ugh! However, it was so weak at this moment that the sound was not threatening at all. The effects of compound number 3 would last for a week, and Jang Yi had also injected it with an anesthetic, so it would basically be unable to move during this time. Jang Yi took a sip of hot coffee and smiled slightly. It's a creature I caught on Star Island. I brought it back to study. Jang Yi looked at Zhou Kir and said, Kir, take a blood sample from it later and see what kind of creature it is. The fact that Totoro was able to survive on Star Island, which was filled with poisonous fumes, and had a special reaction with the origin elves made Jang Yi very curious about it. He always felt that there was something unusual about this creature. Zhou Kir nodded, okay, sure. Yang Xinxin reluctantly let go of its hand, then came to Jang Yi and affectionately wrapped her arms around his arm. Brother, did you give them a big surprise this time on Star Island? No one else knew about Jang Yi's promotion to Epsilon, but his family did. If it weren't for that, how could his family feel at ease letting Jang Yi take Flower and Lele to a place like Star Island? Jang Yi thought about everyone's reaction after he revealed the truth, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Of course! The expressions on all their faces at that time were really funny. Uncle Yu said with some concern, but in doing so, you've offended all the powers around the East Sea. No one is willing to be toyed with by others. From beginning to end, they fought desperately for something that didn't even exist, and in the end, many people really lost their lives. The major countries surrounding the East Sea had lost soldiers and suffered heavy casualties. After all, they had sent their best mutants. It was impossible not to hate Jang Yi. It's okay, let them hate me. Jang Yi put down his coffee cup and said with a smile. Anyway, when I was a good guy, few people were grateful to me for it. In the end of the world, as long as you are powerful enough, no matter how cruel and vicious you are, there will be people who fear and flatter you. Now that Jang Yi had become an Epsilon-level mutant, who would dare to provoke him? Fatty Sue excitedly slapped his thigh and said in a flattering tone, Boss, you are now a level Epsilon mutant. You are one of the strongest beings in the world. Let's see who dares to mess with us in the future. Jang Yi looked at Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue. You can't say that. My strength alone cannot solve all problems. How are you guys doing? Jang Yi went to Star Island and obtained 2 pieces of the Source of God. It was a very magical substance, a pure energy body. When you touched it, you would understand its function, dimensional life evolution. He used 1 piece himself and left 1 for Flower. He left the remaining fragments of the Source of God for the others at home. Although he didn't know if it would work, he still wanted to see if this thing could help mutants below Delta level evolve. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue glanced at each other, then smiled and said to Jang Yi in unison, Jang Yi, boss, we did it. Jang Yi's eyes lit up. He was right, since the Source of God could help Delta-level mutants break through their bottlenecks, it could naturally help lower-level mutants break through as well. Moreover, the dosage required was much smaller than what Flower, Lianyu, and the others needed to break through. In other words, now you can feel the power of mutual devouring, right? Jang Yi confirmed. The 2 nodded, indicating that they had now been promoted to Delta-level mutants. Their abilities had undergone a qualitative change. But maybe it's because our talent is limited. Compared to you guys, we're still far behind. Uncle Yu scratched his head innocently and said somewhat embarrassed. In fact, when using the Source of God, he felt very guilty, thinking that he was just a middle-aged man in his 40s with no talent, yet he was wasting Jang Yi's resources. Fatty Sue, on the other hand, was shameless and had a smug look on his face. No matter what, we are now Delta-level mutants. We can brag about it. We won't embarrass you, boss. Jang Yi leaned back on the sofa and raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue to become very powerful in the future. It was just that their strength had increased a little, so if the shelter encountered any trouble in the future, they would be able to play a bigger role. Yang Xia and Zhou Jaime were in the kitchen. They had heard early on that Zhang Yi was coming back, so they had already prepared the ingredients. They started cooking and planned to prepare a sumptuous meal. Listening to Zhang Yi and the others chat, the two women smiled at each other. Nowadays, one of them was a cooking-type mutant, and the other was purely a housekeeper who provided housekeeping services for everyone. They would not go to the battlefield to fight, nor did they have the opportunity to participate in combat. But now, with the men fighting outside, they were in charge of the housework, and they really enjoyed this feeling. Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen pestered Zhang Yi, asking him to tell them about what happened on Star Island. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. That's a long story. Let's talk about it over dinner. By the way, Karen, I have a gift for you. Lu Karen's eyes lit up. A gift for me? Zhang Yi stood up from the sofa and walked outside the shelter. He opened the dimensional space, and two huge warships slowly emerged from the space and stopped in the huge courtyard in front of the shelter. Everyone stared in amazement. Zhang Yi smiled and said to Lu Karen, "This is the material I promised you. I got it from the Columbia Navy. It should be the most advanced warship in the world right now. I think it should be enough for you." Lu Karen's eyes were about to turn into 100-watt light bulbs. This is amazing, just amazing. Thank you, big brother. You are the best. Lu Karen's happy, pink little face turned red, and she hugged Zhang Yi tightly, then kissed him hard on the face. Yang Xinxin's eyes widened, Zhou Ke covered her mouth, and Liang Yu coughed lightly, looking slightly uncomfortable. She didn't expect Lu Karen to be so bold as to kiss Zhang Yi in front of everyone. However, everyone knew that Lu Karen was a mechanical genius, so she couldn't help herself when she saw such good industrial materials. But everyone knew what she really thought of Zhang Yi. A young girl in the prime of her life, just discovering love, would easily fall in love with an outstanding man. Add to that the female tendency to admire strong men, and it was only natural that she would fall for Zhang Yi. It was just that Lu Karen was shy and didn't dare to say it directly. Seeming to notice that her actions had caused everyone to look at her strangely, Lu Karen blushed even more and lowered her head, saying in a small voice, I'm just too excited. Thank you, big brother. Zhang Yi touched his face. Although it was quite cold outside, the young girl's lips were 36 degrees. When have I ever broken a promise to you? Take it, I'm also looking forward to your mechas. Lu Karen nodded vigorously. Put it away, big brother. Karen is working faster and faster now. She clenched her small fist. She practiced the divine machinist ability every day and was becoming more and more proficient at using it. Zhang Yi looked at Uncle Yu and said, Uncle Yu, please take care of cutting and transporting the materials. Uncle Yu laughed heartily and said, Of course. Leave it to me. Two of the world's most advanced warships were abandoned in front of the shelter. Zhang Yi asked everyone to return to their rooms. Zhou Ke, Yang Xinxin, and Liang Yu saw that everyone else had gifts. Although they didn't say anything, they were still a little unhappy. Even Flower received such a precious reward as the source of God. They were bound to feel uneasy. Of course, Zhang Yi would not favor some over others. Everyone in the shelter was like family to him now. To maintain harmony in a small family, one must be fair. He said, This time, I actually prepared gifts for everyone. And they are very valuable gifts. This sentence immediately made everyone curious. Even Yang Xia put down the kitchen knife in her hand and looked at Zhang Yi with anticipation. Zhang Yi said, In addition to the source of God, there is also a companion energy substance on the island. Although this substance cannot help people break their genetic limitations, it is the purest form of energy and can enhance a person's strength. After he finished speaking, he reached into the dimensional space and took out one transparent jar after another. Sealed inside the jars were origin elves. After arriving on the island, Zhang Yi had the advantage of being a pioneer, so of course he knew about the existence of origin elves. Therefore, when he hunted other mutants, he collected quite a few along the way. With Lele the hunting dog, finding these little things was not difficult for him. These things can make you stronger after absorption. I will distribute them according to each person's abilities. Zhang Yi briefly introduced how to use the origin elves, then distributed them to everyone. Even Lele got one. It excitedly carried the origin elf in its mouth and jumped around the room, almost breaking the ceiling. Liang Yu, Yang Xinxin, and Zhou Qir got the most. The others got less. As soon as they got the origin elves, everyone could feel a tremor deep in their souls. It was the most fundamental energy of life. When they got the origin elves, it was as if hungry people had gotten food, and they had the most instinctive urge to absorb them. This must be very precious, right? Liang Yu swallowed hard. She had received the most origin elves. Zhang Yi said indifferently, "It's not that great. It's just something that the captain-level mutants fought over on the island. Mutants with an ability index above 9,000 will find it less and less effective. For Flower and me, they're almost useless. But for you guys, it should still be quite effective." Zhang Yi said it casually, but everyone understood how precious these origin elves were. "Zhang Yi, thank you." Liang Yu thanked Zhang Yi from the bottom of her heart. Zhang Yi spread his hands. "Don't just say thank you, you have to do something to show your gratitude. You all need to become stronger so that no matter what changes we encounter in the future, we will have enough strength to deal with them." Zhang Yi still had high expectations for his family. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue were now Delta-level mutants. Regardless of whether they could fight or not, at least they could play some role in the future. As for Liang Yu, Zhang Yi had high expectations for her. As a martial arts master, once she gained powerful strength, she would definitely be Zhang Yi's right-hand woman. If he wasn't worried that she would become too strong and surpass him, Zhang Yi would have given her the source of God to use. Yang Xinxin's ability was in the rules category, which was extremely abnormal and had a lot of room for improvement. The key was that she was extremely intelligent and was Zhang Yi's important military advisor. Zhou Qir's medical skills were also very important. Doctors were a profession that people didn't want to deal with on a daily basis, but they could save lives in critical moments. Of course, she had to work hard to improve her skills. Yang Xia received fewer rewards, but only in comparison to the others. She was Zhang Yi's quartermaster, which was very important, but her level of importance was slightly lower. As for Aunt Zhou Jaime, she is not a mutant, and she doesn't lack anything in her daily life. In addition to having enough daily necessities, Uncle Yu has also taken good care of her spiritually, so Zhang Yi doesn't need to worry about her. So Zhang Yi went over to Uncle Yu and said to him, "Auntie Zhou takes good care of everyone on a daily basis, but she is not a mutant, so I don't have anything extra to give her. Don't give her anything openly, but give her something secretly." Uncle Yu immediately understood and a shy smile appeared on his old face. He nodded vigorously. Okay. I understand." Not far away, Zhou Jaime heard this and couldn't help but blush. After absorbing the fragments of the source of God, Uncle Yu's already strong physique had become even more powerful. Seeing the happy expressions on everyone's faces at home, Zhang Yi's heart was filled with warmth. He couldn't rely on anyone outside, not even Zhu Zheng or Deng Shintong. Even Bai Li Changqing might have a falling out with Zhang Yi over interests. After everything that had happened during this period of time, Zhang Yi had come to understand many things. He definitely needed to have his own strength. He didn't need to be particularly powerful, but he didn't want to be fighting alone when he needed companions. At the very least, the people in his family wouldn't hold him back. "Zhang Yi, what's going on with those people in the room?" Out of curiosity, Zhou Qir asked Zhang Yi why he brought Luhai and the other three back. Zhang Yi didn't hide anything and told everyone the reason why he brought them back. Luhai has also mutated, and he hasn't experienced what we've been through. I think he's worth studying. So I brought him back to observe him. Zhang Yi crossed his arms, paused slightly, then his tone became a little deeper. Furthermore, I think Chen Jingwan's position should also be changed. Upon hearing this, everyone couldn't help but ponder in their hearts. Yang Xinxin smiled slightly and looked at Zhang Yi. His strength is no longer enough to support such a large base, right, brother? Zhang Yi nodded. That's exactly right. The coastal defense of Tianhai City is very important. In the future, most of the threats we face will come from the sea. I don't feel comfortable continuing to have a Gamma-level mutant guarding it. Therefore, I want to promote a group of new people to higher positions. After this operation, the countries surrounding the East Sea, including the Colombian Navy, would hate Jang Yi with a passion. The possibility of them coming to retaliate could not be ruled out. Even the people of the East Sea region could not completely let down their guard. Luhai is a bold and clever guy. If he gains a little more strength, I think he could be cultivated. When Luhai was at sea, he demonstrated astonishing wisdom and courage. He used his own methods to turn the tide and defeat the alliance of stowaways on the ship. Once such a person gains power, it is no problem at all for him to become a leader. Jang Yi admired him very much. If he really had the ability, he could definitely be promoted. Fatty Su held his fat belly with both hands and said seriously, "But can we rely on this person?" Jang Yi asked, "Are you talking about his loyalty?" Fatty Su nodded, "That's right. After listening to you, I think this person is quite ruthless. I don't think he's easy to control." Jang Yi smiled, "Only stupid people are hard to control. He's a very clever person, so whether he's loyal or not doesn't matter. He had no expectations of so-called human nature. Loyalty was nothing more than a sacrifice made to obtain the greatest benefit. As long as there were enough chips to betray him, loyalty was worthless. He's not stupid, so as long as I'm powerful enough, his loyalty will remain." Which of the major bases in Tianhai City hadn't been defeated by Jang Yi? At first, they had wanted to destroy Jang Yi's sanctuary, but now they were all obedient. Fatty Su heard this and scratched his head. You're so smart, boss. You have an extraordinary way of looking at things." Jang Yi glanced at him unhappily. "You are now a Delta-level mutant. Do you want me to give you a base to manage?" Fatty Su was so scared that sweat broke out on his face, and he shook his head repeatedly. "No way. I'm not cut out for that. Management is too much trouble. It's better now. I have food and drink, and I can play video games every day." Jang Yi sighed deeply. Sometimes, he really envied Fatty Su for his carefree life. You can go to Blizzard City to play video games when you have nothing to do, right? Jang Yi said teasingly. Fatty Su glanced at the others shyly. The women at home were all giggling, and although they didn't say anything, they still looked down on Fatty Su's behavior. Fatty Su stammered, I'm doing it to train myself and strengthen my willpower." His voice grew smaller and smaller, and Jang Yi didn't expose him. They were all men, and some things were better left unsaid. Fatty Su couldn't be blamed for that. "If you ever find a girl you really like, bring her back. Out of respect for me, they'll let you keep her. When that time comes, I'll build you your own house." Jang Yi didn't mind Fatty Su looking for true love outside the family. However, when that time came, they would definitely have to split up, because Jang Yi was still a bit picky in that regard. Unlike Uncle Yu and Auntie Zhou, who were much older than Jang Yi, living together wasn't awkward. Upon hearing this, Fatty Su sat up straight on the sofa and said solemnly, "No, boss. No, boss, I've already made up my mind. I'm not going to find a girlfriend. It's already at this point, and no one is rushing me to get married. I don't even have to think about having children. Why would I want to find someone just for myself?" He raised one finger and said with an air of experience, "Once you have a girlfriend, you can only have one girlfriend. But if you don't have a girlfriend, you can have countless girlfriends." Fatty Su's twisted logic left everyone speechless. Jang Yi nodded, "That's reasonable. That's how it is." After Fatty Su was hurt by Su Lily, he had completely given up on love. At this moment, he was very open-minded and thought that it was enough to go to Blizzard City to experience life. The banquet was still being prepared in the kitchen. Jang Yi thought that Luhai and the other two had been waiting for a long time, and it would be rude to keep them waiting any longer. It was fine in the past, but now he was a gentleman with status and had to put on a show in front of his younger brothers. He stood up, let the others study the wonderful uses of the origin elves, and went over to talk to Luhai and the other two. Zhang Yi pushed open the door and walked into the room. The three of them were wolfing down the food on the table, looking very messy with food scraps all over their bodies and beards, looking like beggars. Zhang Yi smiled, and the three of them felt a little embarrassed and hurriedly stood up to greet him. "Mr. Zhang. Thank you for your hospitality." Zhang Yi motioned for them to sit down. "It's okay, sit down and let's talk." Then he asked Yang Xia to bring some more food. The three of them squeezed onto a sofa, looking very reserved but also full of anticipation. If Luhai hadn't been so old, he would have knelt down and said to Zhang Yi, "Mr. Zhang, I heard that you don't have a son. I want to take care of you in your old age." Zhang Yi looked at the three people in front of him and asked calmly, "Is Luhai the only one who has awakened supernatural abilities?" Rong Lei and Yu Gang nodded, their eyes filled with regret. They had not awakened supernatural abilities, which meant that they had no future at Xiaoyu base. Zhang Yi nodded, then opened the dimensional gate and took out the corpse of a mutant. This mutant was a member of the Scylla mutant team, probably a disciple of that spider demon, with a low ability index of only 5,000. However, out of habit of cleaning up the battlefield, Zhang Yi still took him away. Zhang Yi placed the corpse in front of Luhai and said to him, "Try putting your hand on his head and see what happens." Luhai saw the corpse and didn't understand why Zhang Yi wanted him to do that. However, he obediently did as he was told. When his right hand was placed on the corpse's head, Zhang Yi's eyes were also fixed on his reaction. Suddenly, Luhai's eyes widened, and a wave of heat quickly rushed into his body along his arm. It was an indescribable feeling. In an instant, his body was filled with strength, as if something was rushing through his blood vessels. The powerful force dispelled most of the fatigue in his body. A look of satisfaction appeared in Zhang Yi's eyes. "You're lucky." Luhai did indeed possess a talent above Delta, which meant that he was worth cultivating. Luhai absorbed the origin of the corpse and felt refreshed all over. He understood that this was a gift from Zhang Yi. The sensible Luhai immediately knelt in front of Zhang Yi and banged his head on the ground with a loud bang. "Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your promotion. I, Luhai, will devote my life to serving you." Luhai was a smart man. He knew that he had to seize this opportunity given to him by Zhang Yi. This could be the beginning of his turnaround. Zhang Yi smiled slightly. "I am this man." He vaguely saw a glimpse of his former cautious self. "It's good that you know it in your heart. Follow me well in the future, and I won't treat you badly."